Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's live streaming. Whether you're watching me on Rumble or on YouTube, I appreciate you all, guys, and be sure that this video is going to be suppressed by YouTube and its very smart algorithm, and then people have to check it again and again and again. If this video meets the policies and the standards of YouTube for none, for not suppressing it or for monetization. So let's see how this will proceed. If you want to support this content, guys, please hit the like button as we watch, because I'm going to tell you some uncomfortable facts about what's happening in the Gaza Strip, and I think everyone has to put all these facts now on the table and tell it as it is. And if there is any, guys, technical problems like the volume or something, please let me know in the comments. And this live streaming is being recorded or broadcasted on my mobile. The professional camera is for repair and it's going to be ready again in a few days. So apologies for that. Guys, it seems that despite 6 months of the Gaza carnage, Israel still finds ways to shock the world, right? Israeli forces are currently hunting unarmed Palestinians as if they are nothing but flies. Israeli soldiers sit behind their joysticks, they fly deadly drones and kill Palestinians as if it's a video game for them. The partner and close ally of Washington in the Middle East is ruthlessly executing Palestinians who wave white flags and callously attempting to conceal their bodies beneath the sand using bulldozers. They're killing people. They think that nobody saw them. Somebody is recording them from far away and also documenting that they're executing people waving white flags and then with a bulldozer trying to hide the bodies beneath the sand. Imagine that. It's sick. Very, very sick what's happening in the Gaza Strip. Just think about the countless of Palestinians that Israelis have killed and buried in undiscovered graves. This week, a human rights official resigned from the US State Department over Gaza, saying the Biden administration is, quote, flouting US law by continuing to arm Israel and is hushing up evidence that the US had seen on Israeli human rights abuses. Ireland said it will intervene in South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the ICJ in the strongest signal yet of Dublin's concerns about the war in Gaza. They call it a war. I don't think it's a war. It's an extermination. The German Foreign Minister, Annalena Baerbock, says that the humanitarian situation in Gaza is quote unquote hell as hunger and suffering spread in the besieged strip. Will Israel change its trajectory and behave like a normal nation again amidst these diplomatic and legal pressures? The simple answer is no. Israel is not going to change course. Western governments, particularly the US and Germany, as the top arms suppliers to Israel, have no other option but to cease sending weapons to the Netanyahu government. At this point, no sane person in the world can deny the barbaric Israeli crimes against helpless Palestinians, and we should all lay it on the table and say Israel must stop its barbaric war machine in Gaza. And beside this mechanical killing of and hunting of helpless Palestinians and unarmed Palestinians, it seems that Israel also has some sort of a hobby with obsession, let's say, with hospitals. Since the beginning of this so-called attack against Gaza, the Israeli side is obsessed with hospitals. The official narrative is of Israel that, oh, this Hamas, Hezbollah, Jihad, and all this talk. They're all hiding all of a sudden this Hamas and Jihad fighters in hospitals, right? And accordingly, they have to destroy them. Now, I will ask you this question for an argument's sake. If there is a Qaeda terrorist in a hospital in Washington, D.C., should the American army come and bomb the entire hospital? Just for an argument's sake. I haven't seen an evidence from the Israeli side proving that these Hamas fighters are hiding inside the hospitals. But let's suppose that's correct. And this scenario is happening anywhere else in the world. It's happening here in Berlin, actually. Okay. In Berlin, there are some terrorists from an organization called Ha, right? Let's call it that way. And they're hiding 2 or 3 of them in a hospital. Will the Polizei and the Bundeswehr come and destroy the entire hospital? No. But this obsession with hospitals in Gaza, it's intentional and it serves a purpose. Because for Israel, they want to destroy the health sector in Gaza. The Palestinians in Gaza are surviving because of few factors. One of which is the UNRWA. the UN Refugee Agency that brings aid, medication, food, medicine, and services to the Palestinian refugees in Gaza, and non-Palestinian, non-refugees too, because there are, of course, many people displaced. Sorry, like I feel like I'm going to sneeze with all these lights onto my face. Sometimes I feel like I'm going to sneeze. So, and the second pillar, how the Palestinians survive all these years in the Gaza Strip, is the medical sector, right? Is the health sector. So when Israel bombs Gaza Strip or besieges Gaza Strip or prevents food and medicine to the Gaza Strip, there was a big medical sector, health sector, who the doctors also from all around the world can manage to bring an emergency medical treatment to the people there. So they want to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. So they are destroying the lifelines for the Palestinians there. The UNRWA, they destroyed it, and now they're trying to destroy the health sector. I mean, they already destroyed it, probably 90% of it, right? The health sector is in the Gaza Strip is non-existent nowadays, especially now after the Al-Shifa. The siege of Al-Shifa, they have some obsession with these hospitals. In Syria, the so-called US-backed rebels, they had also obsession with hospitals. Remember what they did in 2014. They detonated and they destroyed the biggest hospital in the Middle East for cancer treatment, and this was in Aleppo. And now they are destroying all these hospitals in the Gaza Strip. I was reading the report on the BBC, so be aware that this is coming from the BBC, right? So the language, everything is biased. And why I'm giving you the reportage from the BBC, because I want to compare what the BBC says and what Israeli officials say with the statements of the doctors and the statements of the health workers and statements of the reporters on the ground in the Gaza Strip. So according to the BBC, first of all, all these mainstream media outlets who are nothing but prostitutes serving the powerful elites who are behind this extermination policy against the Palestinians in Gaza, they all have unified terminologies. Like somebody sends them a script, so they all follow it. And this script says that we have to call the Gaza health ministry as Hamas-run health ministry, right? So when you say Hamas-run health ministry and you present it to the British public or to the American public, and if this person is not aware of what's happening around the world and clueless, like probably majority of the American people, then you would think that this is unreliable, right? So you give the impression that this is unreliable statement or the statistics are unreliable. So they say the Hamas-run health ministry said dozens of bodies have been found and locals said nearby areas were razed. This is after the withdrawal of the brave Israeli occupation forces from Al-Shifa hospital after they besieged it and bombed it. So they withdrew, and the Gaza Health Hamas-run ministry says that bodies were found. But they call the Israeli forces, they call it Israeli Defense Forces. Not Israeli occupation forces, Israeli Defense Forces, right? They're defending themselves. So the Israeli Defense Forces, according to the BBC, had killed 200 quote-unquote terrorists, detained hundreds more, and found weapons and intelligence, quote, throughout the hospital. They're quoting here the Israeli Defense Forces. The IDF said it raided Al-Shifa hospital because Hamas had regrouped there. The same over and over again since October the 7th. 2-week operations saw intense fighting and Israeli airstrikes in nearby buildings and the surrounding areas. This is according to the BBC, right? So they are giving the legitimacy and covering up this heinous crime by the Israeli forces by saying that there were so many fighting going on, intense fighting going on in the surroundings of Al-Shifa hospital. So if the Al-Shifa hospital has been destroyed now, it's just a collateral damage. Words were attacked because Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad operatives were using them as a base, right? Not just like they were hiding there or taking treatment, medical treatment. No, it was used as a base, military base. So if that is true, where is the footage? Where are the barracks? Where are the missiles? Where are the rockets? Where are all these weapons that they used it in the hospital because it was a base, right? So this is according to the IDF. And they accused Hamas of fighting inside medical department, setting off explosives and burning hospital buildings. Images published following the Israeli withdrawal showed Palestinians walking near the charred main buildings with chunks of wall missing and carrying bodies wrapped in blankets. Graphic photos showed corpses partially exposed on the churned ground. The bodies were basically these bulldozers and the tanks and the armored vehicles. They literally walked over the dead bodies. They smashed them. They were unrecognizable. I cannot show you, unfortunately, all photos because YouTube doesn't allow me to do so. The health ministry said dozens of bodies, some decomposed, had been found in and around the medical complex, which was now, quote, completely out of service. A doctor told the Association France Press news agency more than 20 bodies had been recovered, some crushed by withdrawing vehicles. So, according to the IDF, they killed 200 terrorists and detained more than 900 people, of whom more than 500 were subsequently found to be affiliated with Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Affiliated. Not part of Islamic Jihad or Hamas. Affiliated. What is the definition of affiliated? If somebody has a cousin in Hamas, he's affiliated. If somebody has a relative, a friend, it's an affiliated, right? They are basically stretching the definition of who is a terrorist and who is not. And they are detaining anyone and everyone. Just say he's affiliated with Hamas, right? So, according to the president of Israel, not a single person has been killed during this operation. I truly do not understand the audacity and they don't only kill, they also lie, right? He says, amazing battlefield achievement. The IDF has just completed a 2-week operation on a Hamas command center that Hamas embedded within the Shifa Medical Center. Hamas used staff and patients as human shields in order to cause maximum civilian casualties as to create more criticism and pressure on Israel. It's not Israel who is killing. It's Hamas who is using these civilians as human shields. So it's not on Israel, it's on Hamas, right? But even although and despite the fact that Hamas is allegedly using them all as human shields, the number of the casualties were 0, according to the former Prime Minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett. So the results are remarkable, according to him. 6,000 civilians were evacuated by the IDF to keep them safe. 200 Hamas terrorists were killed. 500 Hamas terrorists have been captured. And no civilian was killed. No one. Guys, if you go to the quotes of this tweet and see the photos that the people are posting, that no one has been killed, it's just, I cannot show you, unfortunately, on YouTube, as I told you, but you can go and check it by yourself. This is unprecedented in urban warfare. Our military is learning and improving by the day. Scott Ritter says, this assault on a civilian hospital will go down in the annals of history as the greatest military victory in the history of war. Bigger than the D-Day, bigger than Stalingrad. The vaunted IDF accomplished so much with so little. Not a single civilian killed, or total genocidal bullshit written by the man whose personal cowardice and military incompetence was responsible for the Qana massacre in 1996. Your choice. I choose option 2. If you go to the comments, it's hilarious. You don't find one comment agreeing with him. He says, Mr. Bennett, I take great consolation in the fact that you will be going down in history as the splitting image of your former Nazi oppressors. The world knows what you are now. Without dropping bombs, without dropping bombs carelessly, IDF has no capacity to fight urban warfare. It's one of the weakest military ever. No civilian was killed, not one. Where is the community notes when you need them? Your disgusting liar, may the world remember. Using the word command center doesn't make it any more true than the last time the IDF used it. Why was the command center not shown per all the illustrative animations presented prior to the attack on Al-Shifa from much earlier? All you all do is repeat buzzwords long enough hoping that they will stick. Your hasbara is failing on the global stage. The comments, you just go and go and go. It's just like no one is literally agreeing with him. If you remember, there was a famous doctor who was based in London, and he moved to Gaza, and he was there and recently evacuated from the Gaza Strip to the UK again. This is his report, right? He said, I received this message from a colleague in northern Gaza. It's day 14 of the siege imposed on Al-Shifa medical complex. Based on testimonies from the medical staff inside, the situation as follows. 107 patients, most of them are severe cases that had been in the ICU, and 60 of the medical staff have been incarcerated in an old building in the hospital that doesn't have the capacity to host such number of patients nor the equipment. The situation, as reported by many of the staff, is horrific and inhumane. No ventilation, cleaning conditions, water, nor minimum medication has been provided, leading to septic wounds with white flies out of them. Doctors mentioned that they ran out of gloves, so they started using plastic bags when changing on wounds, which ran out as well. In addition, they reported the lack of elderly diapers, especially that 30 patients are bedridden and use diapers and in intense need of medical care. And nursing that the limited number of staff is incapable of providing. Furthermore, patients' companions are either executed, arrested, or displaced to the south by the military, which add another burden on the staff. Moreover, the military is starving the besieged patients and staff with no food or drinkable water provided for days. The staff representative tried multiple times to convey their needs to the military leadership. However, he was met by violation and mistreatment. This is what Ghassan Abu Sita says. Another medical expert, he is a Norwegian physician, Dr. Mads Gilbert, he says, today we witnessed the total Israeli destruction of the most important 700 beds specialty hospital in Gaza, Al-Shifa Medical Complex. It was established 78 years ago during the British Mandate. The name Shifa means the house of healing, now turned into a house of death by Israel and the US, burned, totally destroyed to rubble, and turned into a graveyard of patients, medical staff, relatives, and refugees. A massive symbol of heartless, cynical Israeli politics of colonial occupation with the goal of elimination of the Palestinian people, their social institutions, and their lives. US, EU, UK governments stand shamed, complicit by their support for Israeli war crimes and atrocities against all humanity. Watch carefully the killing fields of Shifa. Never ever forget the Gaza genocide, the perpetrators, and the complicit powers, Dr. Mads. This is a video by a reporter or a field reporter or a citizen journalist inside the Shifa hospital. Take a look.
April 1st, 2024. As you can see behind me, this is the specialty building in Shifa Hospital. Over here, this is where the ER was. This is also the garden of Shifa Hospital. Over in that area is the midwifery building. Over here, this is the laboratory for the blood samples. This is also the management department. Down in the other side is the other garden where there is a lot of departments for cancer specialty, for dialysis. As you can also see, the whole department, all the Shifa Hospital is completely destructed. Anybody that has wounds, anybody that is sick, anybody that needs any medications, they're not allowed to come to the hospital. As you can see, there is no treatment at all. All the departments inside the Shifa Hospital have all been burned. You can't even extract a needle or vial out of the departments due to the destruction that's in the hospital. As you can see, this is a sample of a dead body in the garden of a Shifa hospital. All around the Shifa hospital, all the surroundings of the Shifa hospital, all the streets in the street around the Shifa hospital are all dead bodies like this. This was all due to the airstrikes, all due to the gunshots that have been taking place around the Shifa hospital for the past 14 days. All these bodies have all been there's dead. There's ants. There's insects that are coming out of these bodies with such horrific smells because all these bodies are half dead or half taken away, and then all the bodies are just thrown like that. There's bodies that are coming out of departments from a Shifa hospital that have been dead in the hospital without anybody being able to remove them for the past 14 days. We don't know how long they've been dead, but now there's been people coming inside the hospital and being able to get them out to take them to a graveyard. Also, that we just found in a Shifa hospital right now. This is another dead body. Look at how it looks. This is one of the samples of dead bodies. We were just coming in to show more of what the ER looks like, the place that we've been able to treat a lot of patients, the place where we spent a lot of days, the place where we had a lot of memories with a lot of different colleagues and wounded people. Now, everywhere you go, you're able to find dead bodies, pieces of dead bodies with such horrific and bad odor. This is the department of the ER. Now it looks nothing like what the ER should look like, and any patients that come to the ER needing to find any treatment and are not able to find anything. And I believe right now I'm even stepping on some martyrs, on some dead bodies and pieces of dead bodies. As you can see again, this is the leg, this is the bones. This is what the dead bodies they look like. In the back, there is also a lot of people that are yelling and screaming, trying to express their anger with all the scenes, with all their. They came and they found all their family members dead. They had found their family members being abducted, being detained, not knowing anything about them since the IDF invaded Al Shifa Hospital. As you can see, this is just a woman trying to express her anger in the middle of the garden of Al Shifa Hospital.
You take a glimpse of what happened in Al Shifa Hospital, right? The Israeli occupation forces killed 400 Palestinians, including displaced civilians, patients, medical staff, and also underage kids. This is a siege of a hospital. They completely destroyed the hospital now. And as I told you, this is aimed at destroying the health sector in Gaza. And the purpose for it is to create a situation that is inhabitable for the people and they cannot survive, even if the war is over, because after that, Israel will not allow the reconstruction of these hospitals and the reconstruction of the schools and the reconstruction of all these centers that enable the Palestinians to survive for decades to come, right? You remember, as I said many times, that the United States is complicit with these crimes, and like I'm changing my mind about this. I don't think that United States is only complicit with the Israeli side. I truly think that it's more than that. Nowadays, if you see the United States policy making, I think the United States nowadays is not merely complicit with Israel anymore. American neocons and Zionists in Washington, who wield significant influence over foreign policy, are at the forefront of the extermination policy against the Palestinians. They are not complicit. They are part of it. They're partners in this extermination policy against the Palestinians. And one of the officials in the US State Department who resigned because of the horrors that she watched and the complicity, quote unquote, of the Biden administration with the extermination policy in the Gaza Strip, she resigned and she was on Democracy Now! And watch her. Her name is Anel Shelin. She resigned from the State Department over the US's pro-genocide policy in Gaza. And this is what Amy Goodman asked. You said you're haunted by... You watched the video. Let's watch it together.
I wanted to quote further what you've said in explanation of why you're resigning. You said you're haunted by the final social media post of Aaron Bushnell, the 25-year-old U.S. Air Force serviceman who self-immolated in front of the Israeli embassy in Washington on February 25th. You quote him, "Many of us like to ask ourselves, what would I do if I was alive during slavery or the Jim Crow South or apartheid?" what would I do if my country was committing genocide? The answer is you're doing it right now. If you can explain what that meant to you and how people have responded to you.
Sorry. I, that post, I think spoke to me and many people who had to really look at what they were doing, and whether, for me, I have a young daughter, and I thought about in the future, if she were to ask me, what were you doing when this was happening? You were at the State Department. I want to be able to tell her that I didn't stay silent.
She didn't want to stay silent. And many people ask nowadays, how was it possible that during World War II or even before that, there was this targeted hunting and concentration camps and the persecution of the Jewish people? How was it possible, right? Voila, we're in the 21st century. Where are the people from the extermination policy against the Palestinians? How many people protest? Seriously, I ask myself this question. In Germany, when there is a pro-Palestinian demonstration, most of the people are already from the Palestinian and Arabic communities who go to the demonstration, and very few people from the locals come. That doesn't mean that they're not sympathetic with the Palestinians, but they're passive, they're not active. And there is also the question, do demonstrations and protests change anything anyways, right? I think the problem is way more complicated and rooted in the system itself rather than a government or a few politicians in power, etc. So it's a really difficult situation, complex, and I think that there is no hope in change from a change of policy by the current political system establishment that exists in the United States and in many other European countries. There is no hope in voluntary change. This is just my opinion. And I'm not a German, I'm not a European, so I don't have an opinion how they want to have to change this. But there has to be a change for the policies to have a positive reflection on the people in the Middle East. The other day, one of the German friends said, why do you think that the Europeans have to care more about Gaza than their own problems? And I said, about the policy, I said, they don't have to care about much about Gaza or about Syria compared to themselves. But if their governments pursue a foreign policy that is pro-European and pro the national security of their countries and pro the interests of their own people, they will find themselves in a situation that this policy is already reflecting positively on the people in the Middle East. I don't think, for example, there is a European government who thinks rationally and for the interests of its own people would wage a war in a place like Libya and then bring hundreds of thousands of refugees, or in Syria, right? It's not in their interest. This is in the American interest, not in the European interest. And despite that, you have always Americans who have big mouths, right? Like Bill Mitchell. He's the CEO of Your Voice Studios, and he says, I'm willing to bet 0% of the destruction happening in Gaza right now would have never happened if Hamas didn't attack Israel. Like, you would like to slap him in his face, right? It's like, this is March and April 2024, and they're still writing such things. You rape and murder Israel's women, they are coming looking for blood, and it's going to be 10 times worse than what you did, so you never do it again. You see these bloodthirsty people who exist in the United States, and the hasbara and the lies that they keep telling to the people to justify the extermination policy in the Gaza Strip. And Whitney had a good thought about this. She said, I'm tired of Americans supporting or not caring about the obliteration of entire nations with their tax dollars over, because their preferred media personalities tell them that those people's lives and livelihoods are worthless. No, the people you listen to are worthless. What if someday those same personalities and their handlers decide you are the worthless one, right? Guys, when I do such live streamings, I read the Israeli press and Israeli media. And there are articles published in Israeli press that are mind-blowing. And they speak to security and military officers with anonymity, and they bring us articles like this, for example. Israel created, quote, kill zones in Gaza. Anyone who crosses into them is shot. The Israeli army says 9,000 terrorists have been killed since the Gaza war began. Defense officials and soldiers, however, tell Haaretz that these are often civilians whose only crime was to cross an invisible line drawn by the IDF. The number of dead Gazans is now estimated to be over 32,000. According to the army, some 9,000 of these are terrorists, right? So let's suppose these numbers are correct anyways, the percentage. So of 32,000 Palestinians, 9,000 of them are terrorists, according to the IDF. So the Israeli side has killed how many? 24, 25, or 23,000 Palestinians, civilians. This is just for, according to the official numbers, to kill 9,000 terrorists. So killed 3 times more civilians than terrorists. A host of reserve and standing army commanders who have talked to Haaretz cast doubt on the claim that all of these were terrorists. They imply that the definition of terrorist is open to a wide range of interpretation. It's quite possible that Palestinians who never held a gun in their lives were elevated to the rank of, quote, terrorists, posthumously, at least by the IDF. Quote, in practice, a terrorist is anyone the IDF has killed in the areas in which its forces operate, says a reserve officer who has served in Gaza. Quote, it's astonishing to hear the reports after every operation regarding how many terrorists were killed, he says, explaining, quote, you don't need to be genius to realize that you don't have hundreds or dozens of armed men running through the streets of Khan Yunis or Jabalia fighting the IDF, he said. So what do the battles in Gaza really look like? According to a reserve officer who was there, quote, usually there is a terrorist, maybe 2 or 3, hiding inside a building. The ones discovering them are combatants with special equipment or drones. He emphasized that it's not that we invent bodies, but no one can determine with certainty who is a terrorist and who was hit after entering the combat zone of an IDF force. Indeed, a number of reservists and other soldiers who were in Gaza in recent months point to the ease with which a Palestinian is included in a specific category after his death. It seems that the question is not what he did, but where he was killed. In the heart of a kill zone. So they created a kill zone, an extermination zone in Gaza, or zones. The combat zone is a key term. This is an area in which a force sets itself up, usually in an abandoned house, with the area surrounding it becoming a closed military area, but with no clear marking as such. Another term of such areas is, quote, kill zones. In every combat zone, commanders define such kill zones, says the reserve officer. This means clear red lines that no one who is not from the IDF may cross, so that our forces in the area are not hit. The boundaries of these kill zones are not determined in advance, nor is their distance from the house in which the forces are situated. So it's just there is a combat zone and a kill zone, and the boundaries of this kill zone is not set up. You don't know where is it exactly and where it ends exactly. As soon as people enter it, mainly adult males, orders are to shoot and kill, even if that person is unarmed, says the reserve officer. To a large extent, the tragedy in which 3 hostages were killed by the IDF is such a story, since in fleeing from their captors, the 3 entered a kill zone in the middle of a Shuja'iyya neighborhood of Gaza City. So a few weeks ago, 2-3 months ago, when 2 or 3 Israeli hostages they managed to escape from Hamas, and they were killed by the Israeli occupation forces because they entered the kill zone, right? So they basically killing anything and everything that walks and anything that moves in these areas. Therefore, all these numbers that Israeli occupation forces claims they have killed in Gaza, that they have killed 9,000 terrorists. Who is a terrorist? And how can a terrorist be defined? This is just up to the Israeli occupation forces. If a man in a fighting age enters this kill zone, he will be killed and he will be registered as a terrorist. And when we checked the reports coming from Al-Shifa hospital, anyone who is affiliated with Hamas was detained. So what is the definition of affiliated, right? It's a broad concept. And anyone and everyone in a male fighting age could be considered affiliated with Hamas. So they do that all the time. But these crimes that we all address now, it's not a coincidence. It's the Israeli occupation forces war crimes are a perfect reflection of Israeli society. Those are not my words. Those are the words of Miko Peled. He is an Israeli author and former officer in the Israeli occupation forces, the special forces, actually. He explained how Israel indoctrinates its citizens in anti-Palestinian racism from the cradle to the grave. And he was in an interview with Chris Hedges, and I'm going just to show you a short segment that when he speaks about the racism in the Israeli occupation forces, which is something real, right? Not like the racism allegations that we hear on television, but this is real, in depth. This is people are indoctrinated since childhood to hate the Palestinians and the Arabs. And Miko Peled, a former IDF special forces, he explains this. Take a look.
How did, within the military, within the IDF, how did they speak about Palestinians and Arabs?
The discourse, the hatred, the racism is horrifying. I mean, first of all, you know, they're the animals. They're nothing. They're. I mean, it's a joke. You see. It's just horrifying. They think it's funny to stop people and ask them for their ID, and to chase them, and to chase kids, and to shoot. I mean, it all seems like entertainment. And then again, I never heard that kind of discourse until I was in it, and then afterwards, when I would meet Israelis who served, even here in the United States. The way they joke around about what they did in the West Bank, the way they joke around about killing or stopping people or making them, take their clothes off and dance naked. It's entertainment. They think it's funny. They don't see that there's a problem here because the racism is so ingrained from such a young age that it's almost organic, And I don't think it's surprising. I think when you have a racist society, and you have a racist education system that is so methodical, that's what you get. And the racism doesn't stop with Palestinians, with Arabs. It goes on to the Black people. It goes on to people of color. It goes to Jews or Israelis who come from other countries who are dark-skinned for some reason. I mean, the racism goes, crosses all these boundaries, and it's just completely part of the culture.
You have very little criticism of.
It's part of the culture. It's ingrained in the culture and in the education and in the indoctrination since they're little kids. I watch sometimes these TikTok videos. I'm on TikTok, but I don't watch the TikTok. Like, I don't log into TikTok to watch it. But some of these videos, it pops up to me also on X. and these Palestinian activists on TikTok. I don't know what program are they using, so they connect with Israeli youngsters on TikTok and they speak with them. Those are all like 15, 16, 17 years old, maximum 18 years old, and some of them are soldiers, but most of them are really, really young, underage. And the moment they see him, because there a few of them are already very famous, or even if he is not famous, when he tells he's a Palestinian, it's like when in the 40s, a Jew, you know, like it's already this pure hatred and wish that this person would die. It's not normal. It's not normal. Guys, I come from Syria. I can assure you with 100% certainty, there is no one except for the completely brainless, psychopathic people which in every society exist, criminals, who would wish the death of any Jewish person in the world just for him being a Jew. There is no one you can find in Syria except, like I said, in every society there are 2-3% are very, very psychopaths, right? But this is not the norm. And there are hundreds of these videos, hundreds of them. And it feels like there was a mass psychosis or something in Israel against the younger generation, and they were completely indoctrinated to hate and to wish death to the Palestinians. And today I was reading an article, and I want to share it with you. And this is the title of today's video. Benjamin Netanyahu is Israel's worst prime minister, right? But the reason that Untitled Chapter wrote this article, not because he hates Israel or disagrees with the Israeli policies. The reason he wrote this article, from the context that I understood in this article, is that Netanyahu has gone too far, right? He shouldn't do this openly, and he shouldn't say that we want to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians openly, and his officials are doing the same. I mean, this should have happened slowly, you know, a process of a generation and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, and then in 100 years everybody will forget about it. But not like this in daylight, in front of the world, everybody can watch what's happening in Gaza. And so his or the blame of Untitled Chapter to Benjamin Netanyahu is coming from the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu has made miscalculations in Gaza by exposing the criminality of Israel instead of doing it in a more smart way, right? So if you want to see what this article is about, Benjamin Netanyahu is Israel's worst prime minister ever. And it's a very, very long article, actually, but I summarized it as much as I can. Netanyahu, the man who promised above everything else to deliver security for Israel's citizens, presided over the darkest day in his country's existence. October 7 means that Netanyahu will always be remembered as Israel's worst ever leader. Who are the worst prime ministers? Until now, most Israelis regarded Golda Meir as the top candidate for that dismal title. The intelligence failure leading to the Yom Kippur War was on her watch. Other worst candidates have included Ehud Olmert for launching the Second Lebanon War and becoming Israel's first former prime minister to go to prison for corruption. The second is Yitzhak Shamir for kiboshing an agreement with Jordan's King Hussein that many believe could have been a significant step toward resolving the Israel-Palestinian conflict. And the third, Ehud Barak for spectacularly failing to fulfill his extravagant promises to bring peace with both the Palestinians and Syria. But Benjamin Netanyahu now surpasses these contenders by orders of magnitude. He has brought far-right extremists into the mainstream of government and made himself and the country beholden to them. His corruption is flamboyant, and he has made terrible security decisions that brought existential danger to the country he pledged to lead and protect. Above all, his selfishness is without parallel. He has put his own interests ahead of Israel's at every turn. Like what I really take from this criticism is that the author is really worried about Israel, and he knows that Netanyahu has put Israel in an existential threat. That's where the criticism comes from, because of the mismanagement of Netanyahu of this war. So all this, there's so many details that we don't need it, guys. Netanyahu placed extremists in positions of power, undermined confidence in the rule of law, and sacrificed principle to power. Little wonder then that the last summer, tensions over the role of Israel's judiciary became unmanageable. The crisis underlined all of these reasons that Netanyahu should go down as Israel's worst prime minister. The debate over judicial reform pitted two visions of Israel against each other. On one side was a liberal and secular Israel that relied on the Supreme Court to defend its democratic values. On the other hand, a religious and conservative Israel that feared that unelected judges would impose incompatible ideas to their Jewish values. Netanyahu was a hardline prime minister who had done everything in his power to derail the Oslo peace process and prevent any move toward compromise with the Palestinians. Throughout much of his career, he encouraged military action by the West, first against Iraq after 9/11 and then against Iran. But in his years as prime minister, he balked at initiating or being dragged into wars of his own. Then came the Hamas attack on October 7, in which at least 1,145 Israelis were massacred and 253 kidnapped and taken to Gaza. More than 30 hostages are now confirmed dead. No matter how the war in Gaza ends, what happens in its aftermath, or when Netanyahu's term finally ends, the prime minister will forever be associated, above all, with that day and the disastrous war that followed. He will go down as the worst prime minister because he has been catastrophic for Israeli security. In the months leading up to October 7, Israel's intelligence community repeatedly warned Netanyahu that Iran and its proxies were plotting a major attack within Israel, though few envisaged something on that scale of October 7. By the fall of 2023, motives were legion. Fear that an imminent Israeli diplomatic breakthrough with Saudi Arabia could change the geopolitics of the region, threats that Ben Gvir would allow Jews greater access to the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem and worsen conditions for Palestinian prisoners, rumors that the deepening tensions within Israel's society would render any response to an attack slow and disjointed. Netanyahu chose to ignore the warnings. The senior officers and intelligence chiefs who issued them were, to his mind, conspiring with the law enforcement agencies and legal establishment that had put him on trial and were trying to obstruct his government's legislation. Hamas' surprise attack on October 7 was the result of a colossal failure at the levels of Israel's security and intelligence community. They had all seen the warning signals but continued to believe that the main threat came from Hezbollah, the larger and far better equipped and trained enemy to the north. Israel's security establishment believed that Hamas was isolated in Gaza and that it and other Palestinian organizations had been effectively deterred from attacking Israel. Netanyahu was the originator of this assumption and its biggest proponent. He believed that keeping Hamas in power in Gaza, as it had been for nearly 2 years when he returned to office in 2009, was in Israel's interest. Periodic rocket attacks on Israeli communities in the south were a price worth paying to keep the Palestinian movement split between the Fatah-dominated Palestinian Authority in the West Bank enclaves and Hamas in Gaza. Such division would push the troublesome two-state solution off the global agenda and allow Israel to focus on regional alliances with like-minded Arab autocracies that also feared Iran. The Palestinian issue would sink into irrelevance. This was in the mind of Netanyahu. Netanyahu's disastrous strategy regarding Gaza and Hamas is part of what makes him Israel's worst prime minister, but it's not the only factor. Previous Israeli prime ministers too blundered into bloody wars on the basis of misguided strategies and faulty advice from their military and intelligence advisors. Netanyahu stands out from them for his refusal to accept responsibility and for his political machinations and smear campaigns since October 7. He blamed IDF generals and nourishes the conspiracy theory that they, in alliance with the protest movement, somehow allowed October 7 to happen. Netanyahu believes that he is the ultimate victim of that tragic day. So there is something big about something real about the victim mentality in the mind of Netanyahu. And this was also shown yesterday in his own words. He said, Netanyahu, the whole world is ganging up on us. It's a combination of ignorance and anti-Semitism. It's never about him. It's never about his mistakes. It's never about the war crimes that the Israeli occupation forces are committing in front of everyone. And I really hope, like, I watch these videos, right? And I know the shock factor of these, and I know how radicalizing are they. And if you have the heart to watch them on X. They're posted everywhere. Unfortunately, I cannot show you that, but those are maybe one time in your life you should watch what the Israeli occupation forces are doing to the Palestinians. I've been watching this since I was child, 7, 8 years old. So I'm used to that. But still, Israel always shocks me with their sheer brutality and also the lack of self-awareness, right? Who is capitalizing on this? Of course, the enemies of the United States. The enemies of the United States are capitalizing on it, and they will use it, right? It's an opportunity for them to capitalize on it and use it to undermine the credibility of the United States and the West. And Lavrov says Israel's targeting of civilians and the Western acceptance of it is incredible hypocrisy.
Абсолютно сознательные бомбардировки гражданских объектов, неизбирательное применение летального оружия. Ну, 35 тысяч уже практически погибло, из них больше половины женщин и дети. Это мирных граждан, только палестинцев. Уже под 80 тысяч раненых. Напомню, что это вот за 5 месяцев с начала этой ситуации, после 7, 5 месяцев. Это уже больше, чем все жертвы среди гражданских лиц с обеих сторон на Донбассе и вот сейчас на Украине с 2014 года по настоящее время. То есть 5 месяцев и 10 лет. Эти цифры мы называем нашим западным коллегам в ООН, в ОБСЕ, ну, они трусливо отводят взор. Поразительное двуличие и двойные стандарты.
So, guys, tomorrow on Tuesday, 5 p.m. Central European Time. I don't know what time is it now in Eastern American time now. Let's see what time is it now in the United States, because we changed the time, right? EST now, so it's 12. So at 11 a.m. Eastern American time and 5 p.m. Central European time, I'm going to go live with, I will show you. Tomorrow is with Dr. Andrew Hamoud. He is a Middle East Islamic historian at the University of Oxford. And his book, Late Ottoman Origins of Modern Islamic Thought. And he was an ex-BBC Arabic and Reuters in Saudi Arabia. And he was very excited to come to my show and talk about Gaza and Ukraine and the broader geopolitical conflicts around the world. And I'm very excited as well. And let's see what type of opinions he is going to... I've seen him making critical opinions about the American U.S. foreign policy. So let's see. On Wednesday, it's going to be with the historian again, Tarek Chiril Amar. So we have scheduled interview tomorrow and after tomorrow. So be sure, guys, that you're subscribed and hitting this notification bell so you're warned when I set up the live streamings. So tomorrow and after tomorrow, we have 2 interviews. I will try to get other interviews as well for the rest of the week. But Until then, I hope you enjoyed this live streaming, guys. If you did, please hit the like button before leaving this live streaming. It really helps me with the algorithm of YouTube. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. And if you like to support my independent journalistic work, the same that I'm doing every day, almost every day, between Monday and Friday, you can become a patron, guys. The link is scrolling on the screen, patreon.com/Syriana Analysis, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace be upon you and upon your families. Salam.